Hello, hello. Happy Saturday. Um, blessed to be here in another episode. The last Saturday, the last episode of January, we have been talking about yoga cues. We started decoding yoga cues to see what it means. And today, again, I have from London, I have Inga. Hi, Inga. Very nice to have you back.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you for having me back. Always a pleasure.
So good to be able to use technology so we can communicate and connect even if we are in different places right now. So today's cue, I'm fascinated about this, and it was Inga actually who brought it up in one of our meetings. Shoulders down. We hear that cue a lot in yoga asana classes. Shoulders down, and I invited Inga today to decode that cue. Inga, please guide us through shoulders down. Should we do it? What does it mean? What are we taking away from that cue? All yours. Mike is all yours.
Okay, amazing. So I think, first of all, there's nothing wrong with the cue shoulders down, but it has to be in the right context. And I think, well, where the problem is that that cue is so overused in the context where it's not the most accurate, helpful, or necessary cue. So, what I mean by that is that in any poses where our arms are over our head, that the shoulders are in flexion and our arms are up, this is when we don't necessarily want to say shoulders down, especially in poses where we are weight bearing, right? Because we're and the poses in yoga that we do so much of are these poses where our shoulders are in flexion and we are bearing weight. So the traditional downward facing dog, our dolphin, our handstand that so many people are passionate and aspired to practice and improve, and how often, or even in positions where we're not necessarily also bearing weight, but we so often hear it, right? In warrior one, in high lunge positions, anytime that we reach the arms up, so many teachers tend to micromanage that aspect and throw out this cue so automatically, I think almost like a reflex, because again, as with other cues that we've discussed about, so many cues like that we just say because we've heard them so many times from our teachers in trainings and everything, and we just kind of throw it out there as a filler, I think sometimes, or we just imagine that it's such a good cue to add in, and why it's not necessarily such a great cue in that context when the arms are overhead, and especially if we are bearing weight, is that our shoulders are extremely mobile joints and they have such a rich range of motion. Wouldn't you say that they're the most mobile joints, right, in the body?
Correct. Mhm.
Hips are almost as mobile, but they're much more stable, whereas the joints are extremely mobile, but they can also be they're not as stable. They're a bit more vulnerable. But so there's this concept that I've heard of when I started hearing about this, or when I just started hearing that we should kind of move away from saying shoulders down, away from the ears in those positions when the arms are elevated, that our body is very intelligent, and there is this concept called the scapular-humeral rhythm, which means that our scapula, our shoulder blade, together with our upper arm bone, the humerus, they move together. They have a rhythm. And for our arm to really elevate and flex in the shoulder flexion, the scapula also moves together with it and it upwardly rotates. And to a degree, it elevates. But then I think in yoga, in positions where we're kind of standing in warrior ones or high lunges when the arms are up, I was looking into this topic a lot, like thinking, where did this cue come from? Why do we want to micromanage it so much to say that let's bring the shoulders down the ears? And I think some of the best explanations I found is that could it be that it comes from dance world, where the priority has been to focus on the aesthetics, and if you see someone with the arms up and it seems like they're crunching up into their neck and they're squeezing up, that it's become such a thing to say, like, draw your shoulders down because it just visually may look a bit better. Um,
Yeah, let me interrupt you there because also not only aesthetically speaking, but we cannot deny that in the moment that you move a lot of us because of whatever is happening in the combination of joints that we need to bring our arms above our head, this is my case, right? If I do a pose when I have to have my palms together and bring my arms above my head, my shoulders will be very close to my ears, and I will be just like in a very uncomfortable position. So more than the aesthetics, also what I feel like the muscles of my neck are so compressed and they're so stressed actually that I'm not getting the elongation that we're aiming to have. So I understand why that cue of bringing the shoulders down. But now, as you said, the energy, and we have to think in energetically speaking or intentionally speaking, the asanas always will have two opposite forces, right? Moving, your feet are grounding you down on the floor, your hands are pulling you up, right? So that is the energy you want to have. And as you said, in order to have that energy of moving upward or pushing the floor away from you if you have your hands on the floor, it will require, yes or yes, that your scapula moves in elevation. So it will bring these shoulders up. Now, what do we do? What is it that actually what I'm trying to say here is that I believe that the key of bringing your shoulders down is to release that tension that we create around the neck. But then, if we do that, if we are aiming to do the opposite and press the scapula down so we free the neck, then we're missing the point of having the arms overhead in the first place.
and we lose the stability and the strength of pushing, because by pulling the shoulders down, what do we activate? We activate our lats, our pull muscles. So we kind of completely do the mechanic of the pose in an opposite way. And if it's like a downward facing dog that, you know, we want to engage the strength and stability in the shoulders, we're absolutely engaging push muscles that again protract the shoulders a little bit. Our shoulders will be elevated a little bit, and there will be that outward rotation. And then we can undo that, right, by imagining we need to pull the shoulders, which then makes us less stable. And how, if we apply that into poses like handstands, then there's no way that we're going to find stability or strength to be there if we're trying to bring the shoulders down, as that's the complete opposite. I think that for me, pulling the shoulders down in poses like downward facing dog or handstand sounds as crazy as imagining that you would be practicing to pull up and push your shoulders out, you know, or elevate your shoulders,
Mm.
because it's like it's such a strong action to pull yourself up that you're absolutely going to be depressing your shoulders. Then do bring your shoulders down as much as you can, fire up those lats. But when you're doing a handstand and a downward facing dog, push the floor away to get that strength and stability.
I have used this example when I'm teaching in person. I ask my students to stand up, bring the arms above the head, and try to grab the ceiling. Like I'm like,
Yes.
try to grow as tall as you want. So keep your feet grounded, and you're moving your feet like down, but keep moving your arms up. That you are actually going to catch the ceiling. You're going to hang on the ceiling, right?
Mm.
This is the energy that you want to have in your arms every time your arms are above your head, if they're standing or, as you said, in any inversion. And then I'm like, okay, keep reaching the ceiling, but now move the shoulders down, depress the scapula. And then I ask him, what happened with the trying to grab the ceiling? It won't happen anymore because you don't have that energy moving up. Now you're moving the energy down. You will never catch the ceiling. So this is the um, physical idea. Like, yeah, aesthetically and physically, you are releasing the muscles of the neck. Aesthetically, it looks a little bit better, but the intention of having your arms above your head is gone.
Mm.
And I do believe that the cue we have heard this cue so much, shoulders down, is for that, is to release the neck. This is what we want. You want to release the neck. You want to give space to your cervical spine. You want to keep growing into that actual extension. But So let's do that again. Like I was mentioning a few episodes before, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. If you want to create the space in the neck, then create the space in the neck, leave the shoulders alone.
Yes.
So it's like, so I told them, so I tell them, like, keep pulling yourself up, like you're grabbing the ceiling, your shoulders are up, leave them there. But now also imagine that someone is pulling your head up to the sky or down to the floor if you are in a in inversion. And now do the actual extension, move your cervical vertebrae like away from each other, like really extending those muscles. And even with the hands up, in the moment you do that, you liberate your neck. And that's it. You're there. Now also your head is following the energy of your arms instead of just sinking down with everything.
Yes.
If that makes
And
sense.
I love what you keep saying and repeating, that it's not so much what we do, but how we do. And there's a third element to that that I almost like to add as well, that it's how often we do it, right? In which way. So, especially if we keep on doing something with um, so many times with some of these cues that are necessary, like going against the natural rhythm, that scapular humeral rhythm. Again, it's not going to injure your shoulders in, once and twice that you do that. But when we think about yoga practitioners who are doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, and we drill our students to keep the shoulders down, keep the shoulders down, that really compounds. And that point that you're mentioning, I think exactly that it's about that there could be this visible tension that we can see when people have the arms up and it looks like tight. Maybe even some students could say that, well, I do feel tight, there's so much like tension here. But I think that tension is rather not necessarily that the arms are up. Maybe the arms are up, are revealing that there's so much tension, because why our traps can be so tight, that area around our neck, is rather because in our day to day, we're constantly sitting and our head is always forward. And I think that's the main reason why our traps can be so tight. So instead of just addressing it by pull the shoulders down so that it looks that to reduce that tension, they're both tight and weak. So I think what would help us in this context is to rather strengthen the front of the neck, the deep neck flexors, so that then they take more of the weight of the head in our day to day. So that comes back to that awareness, both on our yoga mats, but also off our yoga mats, the movement patterns that we're falling into in the day. And yeah, because yoga is just revealing that, isn't it? Those arms overhead. Yeah.
Agree. And I always say, like, yoga is a lifestyle. It's not only what we do 1 hour on the mat, right? And we need to be aware of our lifestyle. And as you said, we all are experiencing, or a lot of us are experiencing a lot of tension here because of technology,
Mm.
right? I was talking to the doctor and he said the problem right now is technology, because these muscles are very tense but not necessarily strong.
Yes.
So what I would like to leave as a message with this episode is that your shoulders, your scapula will elevate in the moment it needs to elevate. Otherwise, the flexion of the shoulder ends more or less in a 90-degree angle when your hand is in on the level of the shoulder. To pass that and to come all the way above your head, your scapula need to elevate. It is needed. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that movement. So we need to respect that. But now think, what is the energy that I want to bring to give to my arms, and what is the other asana? I'm sorry, the other joints, the other muscles that need to be involved in this space that we want to give to the neck, so we don't miss that effort. We don't miss those benefits that we will get by pulling our body, by moving our body in opposite directions, creating a space, which is one of the main benefits of yoga in general as a system, but also in the asana practice. Anything else that you would like to add? Because I know this shoulder is a topic that you are very passionate about.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, if there are any other yoga teachers listening, that sometimes, you hear about these things, that you shouldn't say this cue or that cue, and then you just get confused about what is right, what is wrong. And I think sometimes a good way to also zoom out of this is that it's good to understand these things anatomically and in great detail what is the exact action. But in the yoga room, in the classroom, what can actually help people feel the most, what you're trying to get them to feel, is using external cues and spatial references and the action. So instead of like overcomplicating and bombarding them with like, protract your shoulders, elevate your scapulas, externally rotate this and that, that we can make it easier for ourselves almost to just invite them, push the floor away. Imagine the floor was pushing back at you, and you're fighting, you're really resisting that. And I think research also, I've been reading that research also shows that using external cues actually can fire more of that neuromuscular system and our nervous system to switch on what needs to be switched on, and make us feel how our bodies are actually so much more intelligent than we kind of mentally are, if we're trying to like, oh, I need to switch this particular muscle on. And we can just experience it as a whole, focusing on the action. I'm pushing, I'm strong, and then your shoulders will come into a good, healthy alignment that they would naturally. So then it's almost, the problem is created by yoga teachers by sometimes over micromanaging these things. And now we're
Mm.
finding that, oh, we should stop saying this. And sometimes saying less is probably a good option.
More effective, definitely. So important to know the mechanic of the asana, and that comes from the understanding of anatomy. And that's why we're so passionate about it. We will continue talking about this because there's so many cues out there. And as you said, if you're listening to this, if you're a yoga teacher, if you're a yoga practitioner, and you have doubts or you have heard cues that you not necessarily understand what it means or how to explain it or what is the reason behind that, please leave me a comment in the YouTube channel when this video is posted. You can leave a comment, you can leave your questions, and I will make sure that we decode that cue for you. Inga, thank you so much for another great talk about cues and bodies and anatomy, and have a lovely week ahead. And I hope to have you again in one of the, actually I will have you back in April. We're going to be talking about breathing, so which is also a fascinating topic. So thank you, Inga, for being with me in this series, and I will see you, hear you, everybody, very soon. Thank you, Inga.
Lovely. Thank you, Ellie. Bye.
Hi, and thank you so much for watching this video. After so many years of teaching in yoga teacher training courses, I realized that a lot of people don't understand exactly what yoga is, or they have a lot of misconceptions and doubts. And that's why I created the podcast Decoding Yoga. Every week, I share a new episode with you where I talk about cues, about postures, about yoga as a lifestyle, about these myths, these doubts, these ideas that we have been repeating in yoga classes, and we don't even know what they mean. We don't understand what those cues mean, and we keep repeating them. So we have repeated so many times that we believe they're true. So I hope you can join me in the next episode. You can watch the video here, or you can look for the show in any of the audio platforms available. And if you have a question, a doubt, you have heard a myth about yoga and you want some clarification, let me know below this video and I will be happy to create a program to reply to you. Thank you.